So this band has been around for like 20 years, they have millions of streams, they were signed to the biggest label in the scene, and I still think they're one of the most underrated bands in punk rock. Today, let's talk about Off With Their Heads. I don't know if this happens with anybody else, but sometimes I'll go months, maybe even years without listening to a band, even if I really like that band, just because I'm checking out new things. And so randomly that band will come back on shuffle, or maybe they're releasing new music and I go check that out, and that brings me back to the rabbit hole of, oh, I'm gonna go listen to songs that I really like from this band. And it's almost like rediscovering a band again and almost falling in love with that band all over again. And that's what happened with me and Off With Their Heads. So the band just released a new EP, Inhale, Exhale, and Smile, and this video is not going to be about that EP, not totally about that EP anyway, but I realized I wasn't seeing anybody talk about this new EP, and just in general, I realized that a lot of people in the scene don't even talk about Off With Their Heads at all. So that's what this video is going to be, me talking about one of the most underrated bands in punk rock, Off With Their Heads. And out of all the bands that came up in that 2010s punk scene, your Joyce Manors, Pup, Menzingers, Touche Amore, all of those bands, that they were like at the top of the scene, and Off With Your Heads was always like one rung below on the ladder of punk rock, I guess. They would never just, they got close, but they never got to that next level in the punk scene. And I mean, they had 2 albums out on Epitaph, the biggest label in the scene. They had great songs, they had hardcore songs, fast, punky songs, catchy songs, and interesting lyrics as well. And as of this recording, at least on Spotify, they have over 120,000 monthly listeners, so I know somebody's listening to the band. Now, if you've never listened to Off With Their Heads, the best way that I can describe them is fast, intense, anxious, and angry.
Share some important details that you're unaware of. I want you to listen, but the pieces are falling to fall. God damn it, I'm falling apart.
I feel like most people, the first time that the band was on my radar was with their song Clear the Air, and I don't want to put out a big hot take here, but I feel like it's pretty close to a perfect punk rock song. Like, there's really nothing else I would add to it to make it any better. I mean, the build-up with the guitars, the drums leading up into, you know, damn it, I'm falling apart, that lyric. Anytime you ever see any footage from their live shows, that's really when the crowd gets into the song and everything. And not to mention the amazing, you know, deep, dark, thoughtful lyrics in that song. So it's kind of like, it hits like all the check marks on an application of how to make a great punk rock song. Lead singer Ryan Young runs a web store / record label called Anxious and Angry. Now those lyrics come from the band's most popular song, at least as of right now on Spotify, Nightlife, which if you're getting into the band for the first time, that's another song that you have to check out. Before I move on, I have to pause and show this. Look at all of the band members for Off With Their Heads. And this is the perfect band to listen to when you're feeling anxious and angry, when you're feeling overwhelmed or exhausted with the world. I know I've talked about this a little bit on the channel before, but especially with a band like Off With Their Heads, I've always found it so interesting that the punk scene, the emo scene, you know, pop punk, hardcore, all the good stuff, that this scene is so entrenched and so, I don't even know what the word is, so associated with these lyrics that are, you know, dark, sad to oversimplify it, dealing with, you know, anxiety, depression, mental health, and no one really, you know, if you've been in any of those scenes for a long time, nobody really, you know, questions it. Like, of course these songs, you know, talk about these important topics, and obviously the, you know, the discourse and the discussion about mental health has, you know, changed dramatically in the last 10 years in pop culture. But I mean, even going back to the foundation of, you know, emo, for example, I mean, emotional hardcore, where that word comes from, or going all the way back to the early days of punk or pop punk or hardcore, any of that stuff, the emotional weight has always been in the lyrics to all of these fast, intense songs. And to really oversimplify it, it's like that meme that you see online where the sound of the music is really bright. It's like a summer day in July, but the lyrics are really dark and sad. And of course, other genres of music deal with sadness or depression or unhappy thoughts, let's just say. But no other scene is so synonymous with songs about sadness or darkness or grief or anger than the alternative music scene: emo, pop punk, punk rock, and hardcore. And to be clear, because if you've never checked out the band, how would you know? But Off With Your Heads doesn't have anything to do with that meme that I just brought up. Off With Your Heads sounds as anxious and angry as their lyrics are. Speaking of lyrics, I wanted to dive in and read off some of my favorite lyrics from the band. From Nightlife: I don't feel love, I'd have to lie, take everything and keep it inside. I know I'm sick and I'm not right. I'm so tired of living this life I've made for myself. I'm sorry that I cannot get past what keeps me away from the light. I hope this explains my problem to you, because I feel like this every night. So this is kind of a deep cut, even if you are a hardcore fan of the band, but I really think the lyrics on this song really kind of sum up what the band is all about. So this is from their song, My Episodes. I've come too far to be this unhappy. I'm just happy right now that your arms are around me. Nothing can prepare us for what life drops at our feet. I'm just happy right now that your arms are around me. And really, as I was going back and listening to the band over the last, couple days and weeks, the song Shirts really stood out to me. It's probably my most listened to song over the past, few weeks. So lyrics from their song Shirts: I don't feel like me, whatever that's supposed to be. I'm a different person every time I come home. How can I be so lonely when you're in the room right next to me? Why has it been like this my whole life? The 2010s was such a fun time in the scene. I mean, there's a reason that entire decade is called the emo and pop punk revival. And when you look at a band like Off With Your Heads, I guess it just makes sense that they would kind of, be a little bit forgotten, in the sense that there were so many great punk bands also making music during that time. Your Menzingers, Pups, Joyce Manor. But even now in current day, Off With Your Heads isn't really talked about that much. They were just a band that flew under the radar. And like I said, they started in like 2002 or 2003, at least according to Wikipedia. But I didn't hear about the band until like 2010, because 2010 was when In Desolation was released, and then like 2012 or 2013 was when Home was released. And I feel like that was the peak of Off With Their Heads popularity, at least in the scene. And when I was doing research for this video, I saw a lot of comments online saying that a band like Off With Their Heads could never be popular or could never be mainstream just because of the intensity of their songs and lyrics. And I don't know how I feel about that. I guess I'm kind of 50-50 on it, because we have to first define, like, what do you mean by mainstream? Do I think a band like Off With Their Heads, would they ever be popular, like where your mom and dad would know who they were, like on Beyonce or Taylor Swift level? I don't think so. That's been a long time since a band from the punk scene has gotten to that level of popularity. But I think they easily could have been on, Joyce Manor or Menzinger's level in the scene. And I would argue that in the early, like 2010 to like 2013, 14, they probably were. Like I said, that was probably the peak of their popularity. And I feel like even now, like, people are craving that kind of authenticity, whether it's in their music or movies or influencers or whoever they follow on social media. And man, Off With Your Heads, they put all of themselves out there for the world to see. I really do feel like Off With Their Heads had everything. They had the songs, they had the catchiness, they had the intense lyrics that really made people fall in love with the band. If you're going to check out the band for the first time, like I said, Nightlife or Clear the Air are probably the first two songs that you have to check out. But all of their albums are good. In Desolation, Home is probably my personal favorite. And then even Be Good, I feel like, is an album that not too many people talk about, even if you're a fan of the band. And again, like I said, all the way back at the beginning of the video, I guess, the band just released a new EP, Inhale, Exhale, and Smile. If you like this kind of video where I talk about a underrated band in the scene, please let me know, and I'll do some more. Please like the video, it really helps out the channel. Please check if you are subscribed, because look at this beautiful graph that YouTube sent me. It appears like a lot of you aren't actually subscribed to the channel, so if you aren't, please do. Again, it really helps me out, and thanks for watching.